Hello and welcome to the Civil War Project, where I'm retracing Civil War history one person, place, and event at a time. Because the build-up to the Civil War is just as important as the war itself, I've created a weekly recap series that posts every Tuesday. This is your weekly recap for Monday, February 21st through Sunday, February 27th, 1859. For previous weeks, you'll find them on my channel under the weekly recap playlist. So, let's talk history. The New York Times publishes an article titled "Wanted, a Leader." It starts out, "Senator Douglas is a candidate for the presidency, and in that capacity probably finds, or fancies, it necessary to do a good many things repugnant to his own judgment. Naturally enough, he desires to maintain his standing as a Democrat, and to signalize his orthodoxy by what we cannot help regarding as an excessive and not very credible subserviency to the executive. Party discipline, we are well aware, is a relentless tyrant, merciless in its proportion to its injustice, and the more exacting as it falls more and more into the hands of the venal and the base. Mr. Buchanan is just now what is customary to the style the official head of the Democrat Party. That is to say, he has the patronage of the government in his hands, and uses it to coerce the party into obedience to his views and subserviency to his interests." The New York Times continues to state that Douglas is risking the reputation he once had for independent judgment, even if it was against his party. They say that Douglas is now but the echo of Mr. Buchanan, endorsing his most questionable acts and eager to comply with his most extravagant and absurd demands. The Times points to Buchanan's scheme to pay $30 million to Spain in exchange for Cuba, and his most recent request for war powers, which Congress has. They make a point that Buchanan has quite a few powers as president, yet has not used any. They point to previous acts by other presidents, who successfully used the powers of the executive office to advance the wants and needs of the country. Previous presidents never asked for war powers, yet did not feel their hands were tied when dealing with other nations. They end by stating that Buchanan lacks the courage, the direct, manly, patriotic firmness of heart and of hand, and it's clear that the only way things will get done is through Congress. This week, the U.S. House of Representatives are working on an Army Appropriations Bill. The committee has released its version of the bill, and it is now open to amendments from the rest of the members. The approved amendments include reducing the recruitment budget by $10,000, regular supplies for the quartermaster's office reduced by $400,000, incidental expenses in the quartermaster's office reduced by $50,000. Army officers are now forbidden to pay out any money in advance of appropriations by Congress. An appropriation for constructing barracks is reduced by $400,000. Appropriation for transportation is reduced by $400,000. Hospital and medical department budget is reduced by $14,000. And they decline the expense of $109,000 for repairs and improvements of machinery at the Harpers Ferry, Virginia, and Springfield, Massachusetts arsenals. From Fort Riley, Kansas, James Ewell Brown Stuart, or JEB as he's known to family and friends, writes to his cousin in Virginia. This first lieutenant has been part of the 1st Cavalry Regiment for almost 4 years. One of 11 children born in Virginia, his father was a veteran of the War of 1812, a lawyer and Democrat politician. His mother, a religious woman, ran the family farm, Laurel Hill. At age 12, Jeb left home to attend various schools, and at age 15 he tried to enlist in the U.S. Army. He was turned down due to his age, but 2 years later he received an appointment to the United States Military Academy at West Point. 2 years into his schooling at the academy, Robert E. Lee, a military man and former West Point cadet himself, became the superintendent there. The two men formed a friendship, and Jeb was often invited to Lee family gatherings. In 1854, he graduated 13th in his class and was assigned to the cavalry due to his high skills in horsemanship. After being stationed in Texas for about a year, he was then reassigned to Kansas. There he met a colonel's daughter, Flora Cook, and they quickly fell in love and married. He told his cousin, "Vini vidi victis sum. I came, I saw, I was defeated." Their first child, a girl, died the day she was born. They now have a 1-year-old baby girl named Flora after her mother. Jeb writes to his cousin, I take a good deal of interest in politics and begin to think I missed my calling, an inclination at least. I am told, however, by those who ought to know that I make a good soldier, and therefore I ought to be satisfied. But if Congress goes to lopping off our pay, I will be very strongly tempted to quit in disgust such a facilitating establishment. I do not think there is much chance for the bill to pass this session at any rate. He concludes on a personal note. I am longing to be once more among you in old Virginia. If I fail to get my leave, it will be a sore disappointment. Abolitionist John Brown, his bodyguards, and 12 freedom seekers are slowly making their way through Iowa. On Friday, February 25th, the group of 22 individuals are enthusiastically welcomed in Grinnell, a town halfway between Des Moines and Iowa City. This is a far cry from the largely unwelcoming position most citizens in Iowa have taken when it comes to Brown. Josiah Bushnell Grinnell, or J.E.B., is the town's namesake and founder. He offers Brown and his group a place in his home to stay and to store their arms. He agrees to aid and money to get them to their next major destination. He also arranges for Brown to address the town at a local church, where Brown discusses the violence in Missouri and Kansas and states his dedication to ending slavery. In regard to their current mission, he declares that, "We are far on our journey and ready to die in open field. We can shoot 60 times a minute, and even the women are practiced dead shots." 39-year-old Daniel Sickles is an interesting man. If you asked him how old he is, he'd tell you he's 33. It's likely that he didn't want one to be disturbed by the fact that his wife is 17 years younger than him, meaning he was almost 33 and she was 16 when they married 7 years ago. Daniel was born in New York City, and his father was a patent lawyer and politician. Daniel learned the printer's trade and eventually studied law and became a lawyer. He was active in the Democrat Party and became a state legislator. In September 1852, he married Teresa de Ponte Bagioli, a pretty, intelligent woman from a very musically talented and rich family. Here's a fun fact. When Daniel was in college, he stayed at her grandfather's home. Teresa was an infant at the time. They met again in 1851. Daniel, a notorious womanizer, was quite taken with her and proposed marriage quite quickly. Both of their families were against it, but they married anyway. In 1853, Daniel became corporation counsel for New York City, during which time he acquired the land for Central Park. He was a secretary in London, England for a short stint, before returning to New York with Teresa and their baby girl. In 1857, he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. Living in Washington, D.C., the two have become very popular in Washington society. They host weekly dinners at their home. Daniel has become quite influential, and Teresa is known for her beauty, charm, and sophistication that puts any guest at ease. Their life seems quite perfect, but it is very much for show. When Daniel was a state legislator, he was censored for bringing a known lady of the evening, whose name was Fanny White, into the House chambers. He even took her to London while his pregnant wife was back at home and introduced her to Queen Victoria. In Washington, he continues to have countless affairs, all while completely neglecting his young wife. 2 years ago, Teresa met Philip Barton Key, son of Francis Scott Key, who wrote The Star-Spangled Banner. Philip is 38, a successful lawyer, and he is completely taken with Teresa. He follows her everywhere in society and spends time with her privately. On Sunday, February 27th, Philip goes to the Sickles home and waves a white handkerchief outside as a signal to Teresa. Daniel, armed with pistols, goes out and intercepts Philip. Philip starts to greet Daniel, but he is cut off. "You villain, you have dishonored my house, and you must die." Daniel takes a pistol from his pocket and fires. The shot misses Philip, who starts to grab Daniel by the coat to stop him from firing again. Daniel pulls away and fires a second shot. "Don't murder me! Murder!" yells Philip as he staggers back. Daniel shoots twice more at close range. Philip Barton Key is dead. Daniel walks a few blocks to Attorney General Jeremiah Black's house and confesses to the whole thing. He is taken to jail. Like everyone back in 1859, you'll just have to wait for the news next week to come out in order to learn more details. Trust me, this will be a huge news story and trial that you will not want to miss. And those are just a few of the key things that happened the week of February 21st through 27th, 1859. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell to receive notifications when future videos come out. Thank you for watching, and as always, I bid you an affectionate farewell.